Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's Saturday morning. Surprisingly, I don't have to work today or tomorrow, but I thought I'd kind of start off and hopefully those watching via the link on Twitter um, and elsewhere. Hold on for a sec. But those watching elsewhere uh, as well. I want to welcome you guys all to my discussion on a few things that have hit this morning on of hit the wrestling world, especially WWE, in a major way, in a surprising way. First of all, first of all, hold on for a sec. Uh, First of all, I will say just one non-WWE thing. There's one non-WWE thing, and that is apparently this one non-WWE thing is apparently Pop. Well, not Pop, but GFW Impact this past Thursday was the highest rated, highest viewed episode that Pop had. So I guess Slammiversary did its job, even though a lot of people like the Schleg Daddy and a few others didn't think the show was that good. Um, at least they they got people's attention enough to where people tuned in to watch the episode, and I guess that's all that really matters. Um, I guess that's all that really matters in the end, really. So I guess that's all that really matters in the end. Hold on for a sec. There you go. I just had to take care of that real quickly. But like I said, apparently Impact had the most watched episode on Pop this week. So kudos to them, even though as Sleg Daddy and a few others have said, it probably wasn't the best show they could have put on. And hashtag saved, and I will agree with Sleg Daddy on this. Hashtag save Impact Wrestling. But anyway, that's probably just a minor detail on Impact's part. They basically Slammiversary, I think, for GFW, formerly TNA, um, you know, is rebooting themselves. They reset themselves. So basically now this is like a fresh start. So maybe we'll get something more interesting out of this in the future. Now, speaking of TNA, you know, many years ago, we had heard reports that WWE wouldn't even consider signing TNA talent. They wouldn't even consider touching those that associated themselves with TNA. Well, surprisingly, in the past several years, WWE has had a change of heart and has proven us all wrong, and even the sources that reported that wrong. Because not only have they gotten people like Eric Young, Bobby Roode, but they've gotten people like Samoa Joe, who's going to be facing Brock Lesnar tomorrow night. They've gotten AJ Styles, who I'll talk about in a moment. You know, they even had recently, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute too, Austin Aries. You know, they've had all these guys that were TNA guys for a while. Even Sting, when you think about it, was a TNA guy. So they had all these guys that were TNA mainstays with the company. Even Kurt Angle for at least 10 years. And again, years ago, we would hear reports that WWE would not even consider signing them, and yet now here we are years later, and WWE has signed a majority of the originals of TNA. Heck, even James Storm, who's back with TNA, GFW, Impact Wrestling, he even passed through WWE when he was a free agent, a legit free agent. And he performed at least a few times in NXT. So, yeah, WWE has gotten their hands on a lot of TNA talent that supposedly they wouldn't have signed originally. They wouldn't have brought on board originally in the past. And yet here we are years later, and they're doing just that. But you know how they say the old saying is hell's froze over? That if a certain impossible thing happens, that's when hell freezes over. You know how? I'll give you an example. When people thought Bret Hart would never step foot in the WWE ring again, or even appear on WWE television in any form or capacity, what happened? 2005, he appeared for the Hall of Fame. That was about it. And then he left, much to the chagrin of fans. He appeared to be inducted. And then, almost on a semi-regular, part-time, legendary basis, 2012 comes around. I think it was 2012. Yeah, 2012 comes around. What was it? Let's see. WrestleMania 30 was in 14. It was in 2014. 29 was in 13. 28 was in 12. 27 was in 11. So yeah, 2010 comes around. No one thinks he's going to appear again, right? No one ever thinks he's going to appear. But yet 2010 comes around, and here he is, Bret Hart, stepping foot on Monday Night Raw into a Monday Night Raw WWE ring. And heck, even he and Jerry Lawler said it best. Hell has frozen over. Same thing with the Ultimate Warrior. You know, no one ever thought he'd come back to WWE. Guess what? Not only did he come back, get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and surprisingly, on what was his last night on Earth, last full day and night on Earth, he stepped foot into a WWE ring. And again, hell froze over, as the term would go. So you wouldn't think that term would ever be used again, right? You wouldn't think that term would ever be used again. It sort of got used when Sting debuted in WWE because no one ever thought he would do it. But yet, you know, even Sting said that this is something he had to do, yet we weren't sure if he was ever going to do it, even though he wanted to, and yet here he did it. So in a sense, you can say the term was used at least 3 times or so in this company, or 4 times when you consider Bruno Sammartino, because you wouldn't even think the guy would associate with WWE again, and yet here he is, back with WWE in some capacity. So at least 4 times that I can think of, the term hell has frozen over has been used in when it comes to WWE. Well, you can add a fifth time to that now because hell has indeed froze over. Hell has indeed froze over because believe it or not, WWE has done seemingly, I guess, the impossible. Some might say it wasn't impossible, but some would still consider this is something they wouldn't imagine. And that is former TNA president Dixie Carter is going to appear on the WWE network, thus appear on WWE television, thus make her WWE debut. That's right, Dixie Carter of all people. And how do we know it's her? WWE has an article talking about the documentary that's going to appear this Monday after Raw as part of the popular, I guess, the popular WWE 24-hour documentary series as part of the documentary Kurt Angle Homecoming. And according to the article, they're going to have exclusive interviews with colleagues and friends that are close to Kurt Angle. This includes Vince McMahon. And in that same sentence, not only did they say it includes Vince McMahon, but right after that, they even said, here's what really got me, is they said, the interviews are going to include, you're going to have a lot of candid interviews, some surprising interviews, stuff like that. And at the end of the column, they said, they're going to be talking with people like Vince McMahon, people that are close to him, friends and family, colleagues and all that. And at the end, they said that some of the people they're going to talk to are going to be Vince McMahon. And then right after Vince McMahon, in that same sentence, they mentioned Dixie Carter. So who would have thought you'd have Dixie Carter and Vince McMahon mentioned in the same sentence? And if you want further proof, they even have an image of them going to, it looks like Dixie Carter's home and interviewing her. And right there to prove it's her, they show right in the lens, if you will, the lens, right in this, if you will, from the camera, they show it's Dixie Carter. So yeah, Dixie Carter is going to appear on the Kurt Angle Homecoming. Now you might say to yourself, well, Brian, how is that possible, seeing as though she probably has like a 5% stake in GFW, if she does at all, if she has any stake anymore at all. I think that's where the whole, 5% or whatever less than 5% stake she has comes into play. If she doesn't have that much stake in a company that she no longer runs or owns, then she pretty much has free reign to do whatever she wants. Pretty much, yeah, Dixie Carter is now a alumni of that company, if you think about it. Thus, she's able to appear in WWE television. Now, Pro Wrestling Unlimited mentioned this. Joe Cronin has mentioned this. Dalyxman briefly mentioned it. I know TRS Central, I sent them a tweet. I'm hoping they'll mention it. They'll talk about it. But yeah, it is a surprise. Dixie Carter always felt like, according to a lot of people close to her and all that, have worked with her, Dixie Carter always wanted to be in the spotlight and always tried hard to be in the spotlight, to be on that same, to be mentioned on that same platform as a Vince McMahon. Well, guess what? She's going to get her chance. And I guarantee you a lot of fans that, I'm not saying WWE does this, but I guarantee you a lot of fans that if they stay after Raw is over and then they show this documentary on the Titantron and her face comes up as one of the people they're talking to, Oh my goodness gracious. Can you imagine the heel heat she'll get? The boos that were rained down upon her when they advertise it during Raw, and if they show it to the crowd after Raw. Can you imagine the heat she's going to get? And you know what's funny is when they use the Twitter tags, the Twitter, the at Twitter names to acknowledge who they're going to be talking to. They actually put on WWE website, acknowledge and WWE's own Twitter page. They even say at TNA Dixie, so they say TNA. Um, Now, some people might say, well, this is good timing because TNA is no longer around. It's GFW now. So pretty much they could say TNA. They can mention TNA. They can mention Total Nonstop Action. And that's true. That's true. That's kind of an advantage that they have, that they can now mention TNA freely. But here's the problem, though. They can mention TNA, but the smart wrestling fan that watches their product will be like, oh, TNA, that's GFW. I'm going to go check it out. They got to be careful about that. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, it's surprising, that Dixie Carter, of all people, is going to get interviewed. And I don't think it's going to be the first time. I don't think it's going to be the first time Dixie's going to get interviewed. Now, what's funny is in the article that gives us the synopsis for this documentary, this 24 documentary, they mentioned that Dixie worked with Kurt Angle from 2006 to 2016. They don't mention TNA, although I've got a feeling they probably will mention TNA in some capacity. Because if it's Kurt Angle, he's probably one of those rare occasions where they say, hey, we'll let him mention the company, we'll let him mention the company. It's no big deal. I mean, they did it with AJ Styles on Stone Cold's podcast, which was a surprise. So I here's my thing. A lot of people are wondering how much of Dixie's interview is going to be cut and how much it's not going to be cut. And what they're going to showcase of her saying, what they're not going to showcase of her saying. And I look at it like this. Like I said, Kurt Angle they'll probably, because it's Kurt Angle, mention TNA once or twice, maybe a few times, not as much, but just enough to say, yeah, this is where he went. They'll probably show some still images, like they did with AJ when he was on Stone Cold's podcast. And I think that's going to be about it. I think that's going to be about it. And I don't think they'll mention it after that. But yeah, I think, here's the thing. When I linked this on Twitter and I looked for a hashtag Dixie Carter, thinking, well, basically what happened is, what's funny is when I linked this on Twitter and I put in hashtag Dixie Carter, guess what? It was already there. So yeah, Dixie is being hashtag now. She's trending because of this moment, because it's something that nobody ever thought they'd see. Nobody. So yeah, it's like it's not her stepping in a ring. It's not her being named a general manager or a commissioner. Hopefully not. Hopefully that doesn't happen. In the eyes of many fans, hopefully that doesn't happen. But it's a huge deal, because here's basically someone that owned a company, ran a company up against WWE, even was convinced to run up on Monday nights, and now all of a sudden here she is appearing on WWE television in some capacity. Hard to believe. It's hard to believe, but yeah. Now, will WWE maybe sign her to a Legends contract just to say, hey, we'll pay you something down the line and maybe have you appear physically on television in the future. That's hard to say. I think if they do, it won't be this year. It'll be like maybe another year from now. It all depends on how she gets along with people. Apparently, she's met Stephanie McMahon, you know. So and I don't know what the exchange was between them, but I wouldn't expect her to get signed to any kind of Legends contract or performer contract of any kind, at least for another. I'd say at least into the beginning of 2018 if she still wants to be in the wrestling business in some capacity. I would expect it then, but I don't expect it now. I mean, if it happens, it happens this year. If it happens this year, it happens this year, but I don't expect it to. I expect this to be just maybe one of a few appearances she's going to make. I've got a feeling they're going to definitely be. I definitely have a feeling they're going to release a Kurt Angle documentary DVD Blu-ray, like they did with Sting, and what they're doing with Kevin Owens, and what they're probably going to do with AJ down the line. So I expect her to appear on those, and especially when it comes to the AJ one. And this here, speaking of the AJ Styles DVD or Blu-ray, they might be doing documentary story that they might be doing for him in the future. This does open the door for that to happen now, because at least you have, in a sense, the final piece of the puzzle to get this documentary going, to make this AJ Styles documentary DVD Blu-ray happen, that they want to make happen. We know they do. They got Kevin Owens, they got Seth Rollins, so there's no doubt they want to do AJ, and this is the best opportunity. The only problem is they don't have the footage from TNA or anything, unless they do what they do at Ring of Honor and they make some kind of deal to get that footage to use in the documentary. But yeah, this is, as far as interviews would go for the AJ Styles Blu-ray DVD documentary story, this is the last piece of the puzzle, in my opinion, for them to grab, if you will, to make that a reality. And in a sense, it's kind of a good sign. It's in a sense, this is kind of a good sign, because who would have thought you'd see Dixie Carter on television? Who would have thought on WWE television in any capacity? No one. But yet here it is. Here it is. So yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah, Dixie Carter's gonna show up on television. I guarantee you, like I said, when they start advertising it, if they're not doing that already at the live events, I guarantee you, once they advertise it on the 24th, advertise it during Raw at the live arena, or live at the arena where Raw is going to be. I guarantee you. I guarantee you that it's once she appears on screen, because they got to show her. They're gonna have to show her as one of the people that's being interviewed. It's like I said, she's gonna get booed. She's gonna get basically so much heel heat just from this appearance, as being part of this documentary. She's gonna get so much heel heat. It's not gonna be funny. But we'll just have to wait and see. And that's just when they advertise it in the arena doing Raw and all that this Monday. If they're not going to advertise it doing Great Balls of Fire in the arena. Oh, a Great Balls of Fire paper. Oh my goodness. Dallas, Texas is going to really let her have it. Yeah, she's a Texas girl, and that might be why they're going to probably show it there. Or a Southern girl, but that's why they might start advertising it there. But I guarantee you, in the arena, when they do that at Great Balls of Fire, and then they do it on Raw the next night, she's going to get so much heel heat just from appearing on screen. And all because she's doing an interview for this documentary. You don't think I'm wrong? Those of you that are going to go to Great Balls of Fire this week on this Sunday, I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. Guarantee you. But that's all I'm going to say on it. Yes, in a sense, hell has frozen over for the 5th time when it comes to WWE, because for the 5th time, the impossible has happened. Dixie Carter's going to appear on WWE television. She's going to appear on WWE Network, and thus, in a sense, make her WWE debut. So, yeah, hard to believe. It's surprisingly hard to believe, but yet it's going to happen. But speaking of WWE, I mentioned Austin Aries as being one of the TNA guys that they signed, and well, it seems that Austin Aries is no longer with the company. Austin Aries has asked for his release from the company, a mutual agreement, so they've gone off on good terms, meaning if he ever decides to come back or it has to be brought back, there won't be a problem. Unless he does some shoot interviews or promos at other promotions and he starts bashing WWE like Al Patron is doing, which I don't think A double would do, but that would be the only way I see him not coming back to WWE if he starts shooting and bashing on the company. Basically, it seems that the long story short about it is he didn't feel like he was being used to his potential. He felt like he was being stagnant. He's becoming stagnant. He was basically being, he was not. From what I can understand, basically felt. I think Austin Aries, from what I understand, felt like he wasn't being utilized to his full potential. He wasn't going anywhere, and that being stuck in the cruiserweight division and on 205 was as farthest as he was going to go. So I guess through a mutual understanding, he felt like, hey, I gotta leave, reevaluate. I mean, he even said on WWE television, he said, I think it was at 205 on 205 Live, he said he's got to reevaluate his career. So apparently that's what he's doing. He's reevaluating his career, and he decided leaving WWE, asking for his release, apparently is one way of going about it. Now, like I said, the way him asking for it opens the door for him to come back. But I think when Austin basically comes out in a sense, and this is being reported by Joe Cronin, Dalyxman, I think, mentioned this a little bit. Pro Wrestling Illustrators mentioned this, and many others. I think the reason Austin felt like he was being stagnated in WWE, wasn't being utilized to his full potential, is I think, in my opinion, he was probably expecting the same kind of treatment, if not similar kind of treatment, that he got with TNA, GFW, Impact Wrestling. There, he was probably hoping to get a similar treatment here. Like, okay, you want to make me a cruiserweight champion? Fine, but I better be elevated to the next level after that. And I think A double probably felt that, he probably, I would say Aries didn't have a problem. My opinion, I don't think Aries had a problem being on 205 or being part of the cruiserweight division. I think, in a sense, he was probably hoping that after he did this feud with Neville, win or lose, that he was going to get elevated up to the main roster, to either Raw or SmackDown, and maybe start competing for the Intercontinental or the U.S. championships at least. And apparently that didn't happen. Apparently Vince McMahon, may have liked him, may have got a kick out of him. People may have liked him backstage, got a kick out of him. I mean, officials were very high on him, apparently, from what I understand. But apparently there were some back there, certain people, maybe like a certain KD, if you know what I mean, K.D, if you know what I mean. And I'm not talking Durant. But a certain KD backstage probably didn't see much, because, well, Kevin Dunn, let's just say it this way. Kevin Dunn apparently doesn't see much in certain people that Triple H brings in. Because let's not forget, there is an issue between Kevin Dunn and Triple H that's now escalated in somewhat to an issue between Vince McMahon and Triple H behind the scenes. So apparently Kevin Dunn didn't probably see much in Austin Aries, even though everybody liked him. Vince probably liked him and all that. He didn't see anything, probably convinced Vince that he's not going to be anything more than a cruiserweight, and there you go. Now, again, like I said, I don't think Aries had a problem with being on 205 Live or being in the cruiserweight division. I think he was just hoping to be elevated up to a higher level. Like maybe he felt, like I said, maybe he felt that after he did this feud with Neville, that he could get moved up to maybe the to the moved out of 205 and onto the Raw roster or the SmackDown Live roster, and compete for the U.S. Championship or the Intercontinental Championship, and then maybe eventually prove he can contend for the Universal or WWE Championships. And like I said, apparently that didn't go the way he was hoping. And in my opinion, that's my opinion, that he probably felt that that wasn't the way he was hoping it would go, and that he was basically going to be doomed or stuck in 205 Live for the majority of his run with the company. And he decided, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to step back and see what else is out there. And apparently that's what he's done. He's asked for his release from WWE to kind of see what else is out there. He saved, don't worry about him financially. He's saved up his money. He knows what he's doing. So, he's going to be okay. But right now, I think he just wants to step back and see what else is out there. If he ends up back in Ring of Honor, I wouldn't be surprised. If he ends up in GFW Impact, I won't be surprised. Excuse me. I won't be surprised by any of that. But yeah, I I will say this: Austin Aries is a talent that WWE really shouldn't have missed the ball on. And I know some people might say, "Well, this is just an example, a prime example of Vince McMahon not liking certain talents that were champions in other companies unless they adapt themselves to his style and da da da." Well, I wouldn't say that. Obviously, I don't think it's that. I think it's, like I said, I think it's more along the lines of Kevin Dunn has a problem with certain talent. I mean, why do you think they put AJ Styles on SmackDown Live? Why they kept him on SmackDown Live? I think, in my opinion, if they would have put AJ Styles on Raw in any capacity, he would have been screwed over. Why do you think he ended up getting the championship shots that he did early last year? True, is because there was probably no one else to challenge Roman, but also the fact that Triple H probably convinced Vince to at least give him an opportunity to wrestle for them. But I think it was Kevin Dunn that said, "Yeah, he can wrestle. Hey, I have no problem with him wrestling, Vince." But Kevin Dunn, maybe in the eyes of people, felt like probably went to Vince and said, "Yeah, that's cool. You letting AJ wrestle Roman, but don't let him win." And that's probably what happened. He probably whispered in the eyes of in the opinions of a lot of fans out there. Kevin Dunn probably went to Vince and convinced him not to have AJ go over Roman in any capacity, especially since you just put the title on Roman, which some people would say makes sense, but it's like, why'd you bring, but this is what upset a lot of fans. It's like, why'd you bring AJ in if you're just going to job him out like this? Yes, it did eventually lead to a heel turn and a bit of a reunion of the Bullet Club, or the Club as they call themselves. And, you went from the, and, kudos to that. But this is why I think they kept AJ on SmackDown, though, instead of putting him on Raw during the Superstar Shakeup. They realized what could happen to someone like Austin Aries, because maybe some people saw it themselves. Maybe Triple H is the one thing that upset him. He saw it himself. Probably realized, you know what? Let's keep AJ here, because if he goes to Raw, he's going to get screwed. So I'm thinking, that's why Austin Aries didn't get the opportunity he probably felt, and maybe a lot of fans felt he deserved, to compete at a higher level, to compete on either Raw or SmackDown for any one of these championships that are on there, because they probably felt he wasn't worth anything. Even though Aries has been, let's be honest, Aries has been Ring of Honor champion. He has been, I think, Ring of Honor TV champion. He's been TNA Impact World Champion. He's I think once or twice. He's been multiple time X Division champion, a tag team champion. And yet they want to regulate him to the cruiserweight division, which again, in my opinion, I think Aries felt like he was deserving of more than that, and he probably realized the fans felt the same way. And you wonder why people are like, the cruiserweights need to go to SmackDown. They need to be part of SmackDown. And that's true. Maybe they do, but and maybe that's true. Maybe they need to go there, but we don't know how much of a difference it'll make. Maybe it'll make a huge amount of difference. Maybe it won't. But I look at it this way. Austin asking for his release is probably the best thing he can do because they separated on good terms. It lets him kind of reevaluate his life, reevaluate his career, give him time to heal up from any injuries he may have gotten. And if he decides to come back, maybe things will be different. And maybe they'll say, you know what, Austin, you want to come back? That's great. Let's put you back in NXT or let's put you on SmackDown Live. Because at least there, on one of those shows, you can get an opportunity to shine. And I think that's what needs to be done if he comes back. I think A Double needs to go to one of those shows if he comes back because he'll be better off. And as the old saying goes, keep him as far away from the Raw crew as possible. Keep him as far away if he comes back. But yeah, I think that's what in my opinion, the reason is. You piece together everything that he said, what other people are speculating as to why, and I think in a sense WWE has no one to blame but themselves because I think what Vince McMahon needs to realize, and this is the truth, this is not the 1980s, this is not the 1990s, 90s. This isn't 30, 20 years ago where you had a certain person where you had things a certain way. This is 2017. This is the age of social media, and there are fans and insiders and legends and all that know a lot more about this business than you do, Vince McMahon. And it's time for you to wake up and realize that. And I believe that's why Austin Aries left. He probably felt that he wasn't getting the chance he wanted. Probably felt he was, because again, like I said, I think he probably pictured it like this: he was going to compete for the cruiserweight title, win or lose, and win it or lose, and either win the championship or lose, then eventually get moved up to one of the bigger, and then probably get elevated to either Raw or SmackDown and compete for either the U.S. or Intercontinental Championships, and then eventually the WWE Universal title. So I think that's what kind of frustrated him a little bit. But again, like I said, I don't think he had a problem with 205 Live. I think he just believed. I think honestly, Austin was hoping it was going to be a temporary deal, and it wasn't. So it basically turned out it wasn't going to be. So, thankfully he left, like I said, on good terms. And if he comes back, my suggestion to WWE, to Paul Levesque, Triple H, is if Austin comes back and you bring him back, put Aries either on NXT or SmackDown Live. He'll be better off on one of those. And finally, but not least, hashtag make wrestling fun again. Well, hashtag make wrestling fun again is really, I guess, in effect, because one of the things we've always wondered, one of the things we've always liked about WWE or any kind of wrestling promotion is if you go to a live event, sometimes the unexpected could happen. Depending on the venue that they're performing in, sometimes the unexpected can happen. We're always saying, people are always discussing, would they change? Why don't they ever? One of the questions was, why don't they ever change champion? Why doesn't championships change hands at live events? And the answer is they do, but it's only on certain occasions or special occasions. Well, last night was a special occasion. AJ Styles at Madison Square Garden beat Kevin Owens to become United States champion. Now, WWE wrote in the article that AJ had won an opportunity to face Kevin at Battleground for the U.S. Championship, and the article they wrote was he couldn't wait to get his hand. He couldn't wait to Battleground to face Owens. So yeah, AJ. So basically, that's the excuse. That's the article they put up. That's the excuse the story they put up for the match happening. So yeah, AJ apparently faced Kevin in a routinely scheduled live event match at Madison Square Garden and became champion. Now, does this mean he's going to keep the titles of SmackDown? Is he going to keep the titles to Battleground? I don't really know. And everybody, I'm sure, is going to speculate, well, why'd they take the belt off Owens? What did he do? Did they just do it because it's in Madison Square Garden and they're going to give the belt to him, probably give the belt back to him maybe on SmackDown or at a live event before SmackDown Live? Who knows? People, again, like I said, are speculating as to why they took the belt off him. And I'm pretty sure they're speculating it. And the only thing I can think of, if there's any kind of reason, is what Owen said on SmackDown Live. When he said, the meaning of what AJ told him, the San Diego Ron Burgundy meaning. When he said it on Talking Smack, that may have come back to haunt him. That may have come back to hurt him. And sometimes even if it's a 1-day punishment or a 1-week punishment, sometimes the way to punish them is to have them job out and just say, hey, you'll get the belt back maybe the next night or on this Tuesday on SmackDown, but let this be a lesson. Don't say certain things you shouldn't say. So maybe that's the reason. I can't really say. Again, it's Madison Square Garden, so maybe they want to put that shock value in. And if that's the reason, then if it's only for shock value, it's like anything can happen. Expect the unexpected in WWE. If that's the reasoning, then I expect KO to get the belt back at a live event this Monday or this Tuesday on SmackDown Live. Or maybe even at Battleground, for all I know. But yeah, AJ is the United States champion. Is he just going to be champion for 24 hours, for 48 hours, or at least till Tuesday? We don't know. Will he be champion till Battleground? We don't know. But yeah, this is huge news. It's huge in a sense because this does rarely, let's be honest, this does rarely happen in any live event, whether it's WWE or any other promotion. It rarely happens that you have title changes happen on non-televised events. So yeah, AJ Styles is the United States champion. Congratulations. And again, like I said, I can't speculate as to why it happened. It could have been happened because it's Madison Square Garden. It's shock value. You got to have a moment for certain people like AJ, and maybe this was AJ's moment, his MSG moment, and maybe that's the reason. And the other reason I can think of is what Kevin said on Talking Smack. So I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see. If this title reign that AJ has only lasts for a day or two, or at least till Tuesday, or at least till Battleground. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, AJ Styles is the United States champion, and he did it at Madison Square Garden. I guess, like I said, get his MSG moment, and we'll just have to wait and see what WWE does from here. Hopefully, they'll build upon this and kind of start doing this a lot more, because if you start doing this a lot more, that will help the attendance for the live events, probably more so than WWE thinks, because then you can definitely say you never know what's going to happen. So, because here all of a sudden you got a title change. I'm just saying. But yeah, AJ Styles is the champion and is the United States champion, and congratulations to AJ. Hopefully this is not just a 24-hour, 48-hour, 72-hour deal, but if it is, it is. And if it's only till Tuesday or to Battleground, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, this is just big news. The reason this is big is because, like I said, live event title changes at live events, doesn't matter what the venue is. rarely happen. But I guess because it's Madison Square Garden and this is AJ Styles, and I guess because they want to give AJ his MSG moment, that's why they did it. And they may have also done it because as punishment to KO for saying something he shouldn't have said on Talking Smack. I don't know. But that's all I'm going to say on that, and that's all I'm going to say on all the other items. Dixie Carter appearing on, from Dixie Carter making her debut, WWE debut, if you will, on WWE Network on the Kurt Angle Homecoming WWE 24, to Austin Aries being released, to AJ Styles becoming champion, and even at the beginning with Impact becoming the most viewed episode on Pop this week, or this month. So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you all to those that watch live, and I hope you all have a good Saturday morning. I'll talk to you all later. Let me know what you guys think down below.